This is Abby York, and I will be doing the 70s decade. So first we're going to talk about the historical event in domestic policy. And by domestic, I mean home, like where we live inside the United States. So this historical domestic policy was the Clean Air Act of December 4th, 1970. This was to battle the war over environmental issues. It was help with pollution. Now, it was an environmental disaster because there was a bunch of pollution from the factories and everything. So, it was to control pollution on a national level. They limited release from industrial sources and mobile sources. Now, I'll go on to the topic of popular cultural trends. Sorry, I can't talk. And it was disco. It was the popular type of music back in the 70s. It included YMCA. And it also had afros, and it was a popular hairstyle to be an afro, or there was even a mullet where it was short in the front and long in the back. And many guys would wear mullets. Now, I'm going to talk about a popular product of the 70s. Now, one of the popular products was roller skates. Roller skates, a lot of people would wear skates instead of walking. Like they would they would skate instead of walking. People loved skating. It was like shoes on wheels. And they were made before the 70s, but the 70s is when they became popular in the US and probably everywhere else. Don't quote me on it. Now, we're going to go on to health and wellness discoveries, but mine focuses on health industry. So in 1972, a computed tomography scan was introduced. This was also known as a CT scan. It's like an X-ray type machine. It takes an X-ray of the patient's body, then it shows up on a computer. It can help diagnose muscle and bone disorders. And the person goes into the machine, and then the computer just shows up with an X-ray of it. So the bone disorders can be like bone tumors and or fractures. And I have terrible editing skills, so I'm sorry if there's long pauses. So now we're going to go on to President Nixon. Now, he was the 37th President of the United States. Nixon, he resigned, which remains the only president to resign in U.S. history. And after President Nixon resigned, Ford took over. Now, he was involved in the Watergate scandal. Yeah, I drew a gate with water behind it, but that's not what the scandal was. Obviously, it doesn't involve some sort of water in the gate, So, instead of getting impeached, he just decided to resign his presidency because he thought it was better. Next, editing skills, again, terrible. Now, after that, a lot of Americans did not believe in the government. They thought it was just terrible. They hated the government, so they didn't believe in it, and they didn't have much trust in the government. But a large percent of the Americans did not believe in them, but many still did believe in the government. Now, after President Nixon resigned, Ford took over the presidency. Now, he was okay as a human being, but he wasn't a good president. So, he could be a good person on the streets, but he just didn't make it as a president in the United States. Now, Ford didn't really get anything done when he was president. He didn't accomplish anything that he really wanted to, I guess you could say. Nixon at least did something, but of course he was involved in the Watergate scandal. Now, Ford didn't do anything. He didn't accomplish anything. Nothing changed. Then there were 2 assassination attempts on Ford, but it was just attempts. So they didn't actually kill him, which was great because that would be terrible. So, yeah, thankfully just attempts. Then there was the gas shortage, where there wasn't that much gas. So everybody in their cars, gas just ran out. But of course there was no gas to get. So there would just be cars sitting on the road everywhere, and everybody's like, I don't have gas, what do I do? So America struggled with a gas shortage, with having no gas at all. So there were just cars and people walking around wondering what to do with all those cars. And that is the 70s decade. And that's the end.